Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And you know what? In my last video, I talked about the G20 having to wake up about what's going on in South Africa. And now here's a reality check. And I'll have to thank Jarko for this. This is actually in the comments. And he says as follows. The Lie of Apartheid in 1988, a German book published how benevolent the white giant of Africa actually was. Below are some of the facts referenced in 1988. Let's hear what they are. Might surprise you, but let's go. In 1972, South African blacks owned 360,000 vehicles, more than all the black African states combined. The monthly income of blacks per capita in 1988 was 352 rand per month in South Africa. Malawi and Mozambique were less than 20 rand per month. In 1988, black people could undergo a complicated heart valve surgery for just more than $1 US, while black Americans had to pay $15,000 US. In a Pretoria hospital, between 2,000 and 3,000 of these surgeries were done every year. This is under apartheid, guys. This is the terrible apartheid we're talking about here. In 1970, black workers earned 1,751 million rand. So let me get that right, because I didn't see the million part. 1,751,000,000 rand, or 25.5% of the total wage fees in South Africa, and increased it to 17,238,000,000 rand in 1984, i.e. a 1,000% growth and 32.3% of total wages in South Africa. In the 1986-1987 financial year, whites paid 9 billion rand and blacks paid just 171 million rand in tax. Indians paid 257 million rand in tax, and coloreds paid 315 million rand in tax. Between 1962 and 1972, the United Nations paid $298 million US to underdeveloped countries, compared to South Africa that spent $558 million US on the development of its black areas. That's all gone now. You know, you make your bed and you gotta sleep in it, Mr. Ramaphosa. The budget amount for black education increased every year from 1970 to almost 30% more than any other government department. From 1955 to 1984, the number of black scholars increased from 35,000 to over 1 million in 1988. 71% of the adult black population could read and write versus 47% in Kenya, 38% in Egypt, and 34% in Nigeria. On average, during the year, 15 new classrooms per working day were built for black scholars. In 1985, there were 42,000 black students enrolled at South African universities. There were 5 black universities and 28 higher education institutions funded by the white apartheid government. Soweto, with its population of 1.2 million, had 5 modern stadiums versus Pretoria with its 600,000 whites who had 3. Soweto had 365 schools versus Pretoria, which had just 229. In Soweto in 1978, there were 115 football fields, 3 rugby fields, 4 athletic tracks, 11 cricket fields, 2 golf courses, 47 tennis courts, 7 swimming pools, 5 bowling halls, 81 basketball fields, 39 children playgrounds, and countless community halls, cinemas, and clubhouses. In Soweto in 1978, there were 300 churches, 365 schools, 2 technicons, 8 clinics, 63 kindergartens, 11 post offices, and its own fruit and vegetable market. The white government built a huge hospital, Baragwanath, with 3,000 beds in Soweto, one of the largest and most modern hospitals in the world. Its 23 operating theatres were equipped with the best equipment money could buy. Here blacks were treated at a nominal cost of 2 rand for an unlimited period. Whew. Sounds like a good deal to me. But it's all gone now. Look, it's gone. And it's gone. Look at the hospitals today. It's gone. In 1982, no fewer than 898 heart surgeries were done here. Next to the Baragwanath Hospital is the St. John's Eye Clinic, famous for the treatment of glaucoma, previous fixed retinas, traumatic eye injuries, and rare tropical diseases. Now, I know all about eye ailments, and that is pretty friggin' amazing. There were over 2,300 registered firms, 1,000 taxi operators, and 50,000 car owners in Soweto. Dr. Kenneth Walker, a Canadian physician, visited Soweto and made the following observations. He saw several houses worth more than 100,000 rand with various BMWs at the door. Only 2% of homes were shacks with neat buildings with lawns. If he had to choose between the decaying apartments in New York, Detroit, or Chicago, then he would rather stay in Soweto. Now, just for those who don't live in South Africa, Soweto is an acronym for South West Township, and it's all tied up with the gold mines in South Africa. Anyway, Dr. Kenneth Walker said he'd rather be very ill in Soweto as in some Canadian cities. He says the city has more schools, churches, cars, taxis, and sport fields than any other independent African state. In 1978, the South African government built a highly modern hospital, Medunsa, on the border of the independent state of Bophuthatswana at a cost of 70 million rand on 35 hectares. In this city, they had living and sleeping facilities for male and female students. Black doctors, dentists, veterinarians, and paramedical staff were trained. It was the only specialized university of its kind in Africa, and one of the few in the world financed by white taxpayers exclusively to benefit blacks. Almost all students, who mainly came from the national homelands, costs were taken care of by the government. Free. Everything for free. But obviously you had to qualify. You had to actually do the hard yards and get the education. That's the difference between what's happening now in modern South Africa. The practical training took place in the nearby Garankuwa Hospital, from where the whole range of human ailments were covered. Garankuwa had the facilities for kidney transplants, isotopes units, with specialized laboratories where 200 doctors were trained practically every year. South Africa provided training for the airline personnel of Swaziland, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zaire, and the Comoros. Now, South African Airways today is just a complete joke in the airline industry. We know it's bankrupt. That's a no-brainer. Can't even pay its staff. It's crazy. In 1979, when the train traffic to the Malawian capital, Lilongwe, was interrupted by rebels, South Africa sent transport aircraft with fuel drums to keep their economy going. In 1986, 80,000 black businessmen from Africa visited Cape Town to finalize business deals. South Africa provided the grain needed needs of its neighboring countries and wider. In 1980, Zambia received 250,000 tons of maize, Mozambique 150,000 tons of maize, and 50,000 tons of wheat. Kenya 128,000 tons of maize, and Zimbabwe 100,000 tons of maize. Other countries that also received South African grain were Angola, Ivory Coast, Malawi, Mauritius, Tanzania, and Zaire. At least 12 countries of Africa, according to the Argus African News Service, were so dependent on South Africa grain that a total ban on imports and exports would have destroyed them economically. About half of Lesotho's male population worked in South Africa, about 146,000 in 1983, and earned 280.6 million rand, which was about half of Lesotho's treasury. In the 1982-1983 financial year, South Africa budgeted 434 million rand for assistance to the independent neighboring states. South Africa produced more electrical energy than Italy, as much crude steel as finance, more wheat than Canada, more wool than the United States, more wine than Greece, and more fish than Great Britain. South African trains ran on more rail lines than in West Germany, carried more passengers than Switzerland, had better punctuality record than Austria, and exported car parts to 100 countries. South African mines bore down to the depth of 3,480 meters and hold the record for the deepest vertical shaft of 2.498 kilometers, deep into the hardest rock in the world. They were accused by the world that it was a police state under apartheid. In South Africa, it had 1.4 officers for every 1,000 people, whilst the world had the following: United States 2.2, New York 4.3, and Moscow 10 per 1,000. In South Africa, there were 16,292 white policemen versus 19,177 non-white policemen. They were accused of killing their political offenders. In 1979 to 1980, there were no deaths in South African prisons. In the previous 10 years, 37 died versus 274 in the same period in Wales and England. They were accused that they paid starvation wages. In 1974, the average monthly income of black workers in South Africa was $127 versus the US $140 in the US, the richest country in the world. They were accused that they locked up thousands of political prisoners. In 1983, 127 such prisoners were confined in South Africa, and 11 whose movements were limited. A further 32 were under house arrest. Now, that kind of brings things back into perspective, guys. Look, I have absolutely no doubt that what this information is providing is correct, because I know a little bit about what happened back then, and there's some stats there that fit in perfectly to my understanding of those times. So I'm just putting out there, it's unsubstantiated. If you think it's wrong, put it in the comments down below. But clearly, South Africa pre-1994 was a far better place for everybody, regardless of color, than it is today. Today, it's a complete shambles. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell to get the updates, and have a great day. Bye for now.